everyone. As always, my name is Alicia Jackson. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and today we're going to talk about the different types of boundaries. Did you know that there were different types of boundaries? There are. There's actually the different types of boundaries you can set, and then within that, there are 3 different types of boundaries. So I'm going to try to get through all of that. It sounds a lot. Sounds overwhelming, but I'm going to try to condense it as much as possible. Okay? So, when it comes to the different types of boundaries that you can set, there are actually, believe it or not, there are 6 different boundaries that you can set. There's physical, emotional, time, sexual, intellectual, and material. I know. So, first let's start with physical boundaries. And this is talking about your space, whether you want people to touch you or not, what you eat or drink, resting, all of those. You set those boundaries with yourself and with others. I have to have my 3 meals a day. I have to get in this amount of water. No, I don't drink. No, I don't take in that type of, some people just don't eat sweets or things like that. I'm vegan, I'm gluten free, all those different types of boundaries that they set with their physical person, with their physical body, with their body. And when they communicate that with others about saying, okay, I don't, especially in the era of COVID, don't feel comfortable with you being this close, or telling others where they don't feel comfortable with you touching them. Some people, just a touch on the shoulder can be uncomfortable for them. So feeling empowered to set those physical boundaries for yourself. Now, there's the second type of boundary is emotional. So emotional boundaries are really about how comfortable you are with really communicating your feelings and sharing things with others, managing your emotional health, setting boundaries about how you manage your emotions. Sometimes emotions can be so overwhelming, so draining, and you're maybe get some kind of disturbing news and it kind of hits your system and you kind of go down for a moment. And so you may have to set a boundary with yourself and say, okay, I'm only going to allow this to happen for this amount of time. And then we're going to have to do something constructive about it, or we're going to do something to help us feel more empowered, move in the right direction. Okay. So those are kind of ways you can set emotional boundaries. And then also, what you have capacity for when it comes to lending your own emotions to other people and being an emotional safe space for others. Sometimes you just, depending on what's happening in your life, you have a limited capacity. And that is okay. And I think sometimes that is something that us as friends, specifically, and even family members at times have a struggle with, especially in the area of grief. Grief definitely is an emotion that limits your capacity to be there for other people. And so giving yourself grace and giving others that you know that are dealing and managing grief, giving them grace to know that sometimes what is someone's best looks different depending on what's happening in their lives. And that's okay. Okay? So that's emotional boundaries. Time boundaries. Yes. Time boundaries is pretty self-explanatory. So we're talking about time management, you setting boundaries with yourself with time, and then also setting boundaries with others about your time. So you might have a day where you say, hey, this is my day, this is for me. Any other day, I will, bend and allow and connect and be social and or work or anything like that. But you have maybe one day where it's hey, this is my day to rest. This is my day to take care of myself. This is my day to decompress. And making sure you set that boundary with yourself to making sure hey, you don't bend for other people, and then also making sure that you don't bend for yourself. And allow other people to influence you, okay, and going against that boundary. Now, there are times, right? Boundaries can have some fluidity in there, but we want to make sure that they're healthy for the most part. There may be times where you're like, okay, I'll adjust this boundary this one time. And so it's you being self-aware and knowing yourself to know, are you going to be able to set this, move this way a little bit, this boundary a little bit, so that you can do what you need to do to assist someone, and then adjust it back so that this person, and then communicating with that person, I'm going to do this one time. Normally I don't take calls on Sundays, but I'm doing it this one time because I know that you're in need, and I definitely understand that, but I'm just letting you know, like, moving forward, these are the hours that I take phone calls regarding this, so that they understand, and then you can also like reinforce it with yourself to know that, okay, when it comes to my boundaries with my time, this is it. Okay. All right. Sexual boundaries. All right. Sexual boundaries is super important, especially with my youngsters. I know that we're exploring our sexuality. We're curious about our sexuality. And so communicating your sexual boundaries with others is super, super important. Making sure you feel safe. Making sure that you even, when it comes to my married couples or my long-term, my long partner couples, knowing that you also communicating and have a pattern of communication and safety with your partner regarding sexual boundaries. What's okay, what's allowed, what's not allowed. A very common tool that people do use is like the red light, green light, yellow light. So what is red light? Meaning not allowed. Green light, we're good to go. And yellow light, like, hey, we need to talk about it. So having that boundary and having that kind of in place makes you feel safe, makes your partner feel safe, and keeps the sexual environment a safe space and a healthy space to explore. All right. Number 5, intellectual boundaries. This one's kind of tricky. It's about thoughts and ideas and sharing them, respecting ideas, respecting others' ideas, and even respecting your own ideas. Sometimes we can like down talk our ideas, calling them stupid, or I don't know why this came up, but this seems silly. Respecting your own ideas and when to share the information. So sometimes not all information needs to be shared, and also there's times where maybe you want to hold back and reserve the information until the appropriate time. And so knowing that for yourself and for others, if you see the person that's like overwhelmed, they don't need information, and we're not talking about like emotional information that's like, this is a serious subject that we need to talk about right now, but it could be just in the area of work. And say you're a supervisor and you notice that it's been a long day for your team, and like at the end of the day, it's not the best day to give out the new protocol information for the next, for the next week. It's not the best time. Or providing the information via email, so you distribute it through email, but then you also follow up with the team meetings to see if they have any questions about the information, so you get clarity and respect their ideas and questions about it. That makes sense. So that's setting intellectual boundaries, knowing when it's a good time, knowing when it's not a good time, respecting ideas and perspectives. Yay. Okay. All right. And the last one, material boundaries. So sharing material possessions with others. Sharing is caring. We learned that as a young person, right? And so there are boundaries within that as well, though. Specifically when it comes to like material possessions that have an extreme value or even like emotional value. Some people have like very strict boundaries when it comes to like loaning people money. Some people just don't do it. Some people will just, hey, don't worry about it. You need it. Here it is. And that's it. They rather give the person the money than lend the money because, they don't want this to cause any issues in the relationship. Okay. So making sure that you have whatever boundaries you have regarding like what's something that you don't feel comfortable sharing with someone, what's something that you do feel comfortable sharing with someone, and then even sitting with yourself to figure out if it is something that you feel like maybe is too rigid, or is like you're being too generous in this area, to kind of take in and sit with it and figure out what's going on there, because material boundaries can be like a very tricky place to navigate, especially in our intimate relationships as well. And when I say intimate, I'm not talking about just romantic relationships, but I'm talking about really like close friend relationships too. Because we just kind of like give. We're like, oh, you need it? You got it. And that may not always be the best practice in all your relationships, depending on what's happening in the relationship and everything else that follows that. So I hope that helps. So I'm going to talk about the three types of boundaries so that can be set or that people have. Okay. So we talked about the different areas that you can have boundaries. Now we're going to talk about the three different type of boundary sets that people do have. Okay, and so the first one is rigid boundaries. Okay, and these rigid boundaries are people typically who have like very little like close relationships in their life. They're fairly shut off. They don't share much. They're very private people in their lives. They just very closed off. Have very like a lot of very like surface level relationships, and tend to be very, very, very private people. And they have like there's a lot of no's. There's more no's than yeses in their lives. Okay. And so being so rigid with your boundaries can put you in a place where there's just not a lot of opportunity for you to benefit from relating and connecting with others, and also being like open to opportunities because you're so rigid and closed off. It's almost like very typical of like an avoidant personality, trying to protect yourself, right, away from people and the things that come with people from time to time. Okay, and so that is a type of boundary that people do have. Now, on the other side is porous boundaries. And it reminds me of SpongeBob SquarePants. But porous, think of a sponge. It just kind of bends and gives with whatever is happening, right? It's like a stress ball. If you squeeze it, it just kind of molds and folds to whatever is happening. And then you release it. It's like, oh, we're back. Okay? So it's very, very... So it's very typical of how those boundaries are. There's really we just bend kind of with the wind. We're oversharing with people. We're dependent on other people. Accepting abuse and disrespect. We allow people to walk over you. Have a hard time saying no. Have a tendency to like be very people pleasing focused, and being very nervous and scared when it comes to saying no to others or setting boundaries. Like it's very just very free, and you could just do anything, treat me any old kind of way, I'll be okay, and that is not, nobody truly is okay with mistreatment. They're just not. But that is an example or that is a type of boundary that we want to definitely steer away from. Most people definitely have a hard time in this area. Less with the rigid area. There's definitely some areas that people have some rigid boundaries, and that's an area to like explore and sit with, of course. But majority of the time, people have a hard time with setting boundaries and not having porous boundaries in those areas. Okay, and then of course there's healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries value opinions. They are open to others. They are They share with others, they share of themselves, but only to their comfort level, and they have close relationships. They have people, their set people, right? They have their set circle, and they have also information that they may not feel comfortable sharing with everyone, but they do share with others and connect with other people, and share of themselves, to the point, not to the point where it's hurting them or that they feel mistreated or abused. Okay. And so those are healthy boundaries. And so that's what we're striving for. We're striving for healthy boundaries. We discussed the different areas of boundaries, the different areas in your life where you can set boundaries, which are physical, emotional, time, sexual, intellectual, and material. And the different types of boundaries that there are, which is rigid, porous, and of course, what we're aiming for, healthy boundaries. So thank you so much for watching. Of course, if you have any questions below about the different areas of boundaries and the different types of boundaries, feel free to comment and share below, and of course share this video. And you already know, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next week. Thanks so much, and you take care.